Yo, welcome back. Another episode of Real Conversations Podcast. Presented to you by Real Conversations Podcast Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to all our social media sites: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We be dropping content every day of every week, and we're gonna keep the content rolling. Today we got a special guest, Robert Michael P. Jr. He's going to talk about his upbringing. He's going to talk about him being rehabilitated from a prison term. We're going to talk about his time in prison. We're going to talk about him creating his family with his wife and children, and why the family structure is so needed in today's time. And we also going to talk about him creating his podcast, Creating Greatness, which y'all can find on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And the links will all be in the description. So make sure to follow my man. And we're going to bring him on without further ado. Let's bring him on. Big Rob, welcome to the show. Let's get it.
Hey,
Yo,
brother.
what's going on? How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm blessed, brother. I'm above ground. My family's healthy. I can't complain, brother. Thank you so much for having me here, man. I'm excited.
All right, I appreciate you. So
Absolutely.
we gonna kick it off, for the viewers that never heard of you, not familiar with what you represent. We're just gonna start off from the top. Let them know like your upbringing, where you're from, and your family dynamic as a kid.
Well, I probably have a similar or relatable story to a lot of folks that are my age. I'm 44 years old, so growing up in the 80s and 90s in South New Jersey. Where I lived in South New Jersey, it was equidistant from Philadelphia and Atlantic City. So that kind of gives you the vibe. It's not that New York, Northern Jersey vibe. I was right between Atlantic City and Philadelphia. So all my entertainment, all my fun was going to those two places. And it had a lot of influence on who I became when I was still living there in New Jersey. The family dynamic was relatively normal in the beginning, as probably a lot of people can relate to. Mom, dad, we didn't have money, but it seemed as if we were making the right moves to get in the right places to be doing better things. But then common denominator, something that you hear probably every day is things went south. You're growing up with one parent, and maybe you're flipping back and forth. A lot of negativity involved, a lot of running around the streets, a lot of lack of guidance. So I idolized the guys I see in the streets, selling drugs. They had the big rims, they had the best looking women, they had the gold chains, and I didn't have anybody to steer me away from those things. So man, I went full speed, and that's until I crashed. That was my whole bringing up, man. It seemed okay. Things got wavery. I started going down the wrong path. I started going down the wrong path fast, and I crashed. And the story from there.
Okay. Like you said, the story from there. So let the people know how your life, like you said, was pretty normal upbringing. How did you get from the upbringing to spiraling down that road to end you up in a correctional facility?
Well, I guess when all that's happening, excuse me, when all those things are happening, I don't know if a lot of people understand. I didn't understand it when I was going through it, but I was going through emotional turmoil. I didn't know how to label it. I didn't know how to process it. And that led me sort of down this like attention seeking road where I had to be the tough guy, or I had to be the guy with the most money, or I had to be the guy doing the craziest things. And that led me into groups of people that were dealing drugs, selling drugs. And, you also come from that world and it spirals down and then you're broke. You're dealing with one parent, you're back and forth and the money's all messed up and you might not have your basic needs. You might not have the things that other kids have that are making them, be able to maneuver in society at that time. So selling drugs was like easy for me. I had the gift of gab. I had the plug. I knew the guys around the town. And I just got into that. And with that came like a whole new addiction. It was power. It was being the man. It was the cars. It was the gold chains. It was the money, rubber band in my pocket, and feeling like something I never had. You know, I never had money. I never had people looking at me like I was the man. I never felt accepted. I never felt loved. You know, so this was all new to me. And man, I took it, and I took it so hard. The thing that happens is when you live in that lifestyle, it's very hard to maintain any sort of discipline or any sort of structure within your life. And pretty soon, you know, that lifestyle, the girls, the drinking, the smoking constant weed, you know, it divulged in it evolved into other things. You know, now I'm at the club later. I'm getting subjected to different people. I'm getting subjected to different types of women who are putting me on to different types of things. So now I'm eating pills. You know, now I'm trying cocaine. Now I'm breaking the golden rule of getting high off my own supply. And you know, I tell this story, and it may sound funny, but it's funny now, but it wasn't funny at the time. It's like I went from the biggest drug dealer in my area to probably the biggest drug addict in my area because I just slowly went down this slope, and then I was like, so I get incarcerated and I get back out and I'm back into life. I'm trying to pull some money back together. I'm trying to, you know, flip lawyer money and bail money. And I just sink further. And each time I get incarcerated, less people are messing with me. Less people are talking to me. I have less resources. So now that spiral, it's sucking me down, drain. So now the misery of that is like, now I don't have the people and the glory around me, but I'm still trying to live this lifestyle. I'm sinking deeper. I'm doing more drug to escape that feeling, that emptiness, you know, that I felt inside. I'm doing more drug. I'm getting incarcerated more and more and more until finally I got incarcerated for the fourth time, not just the fourth time, but the fourth state bit. You know, I had been incarcerated probably 25 times, but now in 2011, you know, if you don't mind me divulging this to your audience, you know, I don't mind because, you know, I'm not that dude. You know, I can talk about that dude because I'm not that dude anymore. And, you know,
Go ahead. This for the youth. Go ahead.
I caught a first degree on robbery in 2011. I was facing 19 years. And it was already after I had spent the better part of that decade in and out of prison. And when I got to county, I was dazed and confused. You know, I was sitting in, you know, the metal cell with the chip paint and a dirty bunkie and a whole nine. And they slip all these green sheets under the door. I remember this is clear while I'm explaining it so clearly because I never forget this moment. The green sheets come out of the door, all these charges that I've allegedly committed, you know, the night or the day before. And I really had very little recollection of because I was so far under the influence. I try to get on the phone. Nobody pick up the phone. Maybe a day go by. I try to send out some kites. Nobody's getting back to me. I started getting nervous. I go to the arraignment. They're offering me 19 with an 85. I get a little more nervous. And sometime within that time frame, not being able to get bailed out, you know, I had a $100,000 bail. Something just hit me, man. Something just woke me up. Like something just like, it was like for the very first time, I took responsibility for my actions. And I look at these green papers and I go, you did this. You did all this and you put yourself here. And not only did you do that, but you alienated everybody around you. You destroyed your whole life. You pushed everyone that loved you away. And now you have nobody. And that's also your fault. So a lot of people may think like, wow, that's sad, right? But here goes the thing is it was not sad for me. I get chills just thinking about it now because it was like this 1,000-pound weight had been lifted off of me. I was no longer playing the blame game. I no longer was going, you did this to me. It's your fault that I'm here. And with that acceptance of the responsibility and the understanding that me, with the power that I hold, did all this, caused all this destruction, chaos, and death. I could now use that power to uplift myself, to get myself out of this situation. If I did it, it was already my understanding. And that was the epiphany of it, that I had that understanding that I can do better. I can get out of this with that same mental thought and physical action that I put myself here. And that was a liberating moment for me, man. That was where it all started to change.
Okay. So as you saying your turnaround in prison, how you were waking up, let the people know how you came into the light, so to speak. You know, how you found the divine spiritual energy, God, whatever you want to call it. Let the people know like how was you living before and what changed after you gave, you know, your life to God.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just tapped into the key. The key of it all is right there, man. But before I got there, because it takes time, you've seen so many things, you've been through so much. The idea of God is difficult, and it's difficult for a lot of us. And when we're approached with the idea of God, a lot of times we snub our nose or we turn the other way because we've been hurt, we've been pained, we've seen dirty, destructive things, awful things that make us question of the existence of God. Well, before I did that, the thing that I did was have that moment where I took responsibility. That's the number one thing, man. You take responsibility. You go, okay, I did this. I could change it. That's the understanding. With that switch in perspective, I started doing things differently. I started realizing that everything that I was doing up until that point obviously was not working. So I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to radically change everything I do. And the only way that I knew how to do that was just to do the opposite of what my instinct was. Nobody was teaching me. Nobody was telling me. Nobody was going, do this, do that. I just go, if I do the opposite of what my instinct is, it may turn out better for me because my instinct has led me here. So I started doing the opposite. What the opposite for me was going to a voluntary program while I was incarcerated, rather than sitting in the pub with the fellas, gambling, working out, chasing the phone, whatever. Those were no longer productive ways to spend my time. I'd been incarcerated. I'd done bids. I knew how to do it. Now I was going to do it totally differently because I knew one thing for sure in my head, I was never going back. So when I joined that voluntary program, they were allowing me to speak like I'm doing now. It was the spark of what I do now, which is speaking to other people and helping other people. I started it right there within the walls because something that bothered me that was people would come and speak to us and they would tell us like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, but they wouldn't tell you how. And then they would say, well, you have to change your thinking because I thought like, yeah, man, girls, money, going out all the time, like that's all I think about. So they were telling me to change my thinking, and I'm like, how do you change your thinking? And I blanked so many people. And then they changed the subject. I figured it out, man. I cracked the code, at least for me. But along these lines, I'm able to reveal many truths, and that's what I do on Creating Greatness podcast. And for me, dude, it was meditation, hands down. It wasn't God. It wasn't Jesus. Like I follow Jesus now. I'm Christian. That came later as I evolved through my meditation. Because when I started meditating, I started realizing what the root of all my behavioral problems were. The root of all my behavioral problems were all my nasty, negative, destructive thoughts that were constantly swirling around within my head, which, if you want to put it in a metaphysical sense, those were my demons. The vices, the gambling, the drinking, the lust, all of that, filling that hole within me because I felt so empty. I didn't have God. I didn't have that divinity as you speak. So all those things were my demons, and they will attack with the lack of God in your life. Through meditation, I faced it all. Scenes of pornographic nature, scenes of extreme violence, scenes of anything that I'd been through, that I've suffered through, things I was guilty about, things that I was embarrassed about, ashamed of. And a lot of people will stop because the meditation becomes uncomfortable. But this is my promise to you. If you're able to sit in stillness, you don't have to quiet the mind. That's not even the point in the beginning. And deal with all your demons and let it all play out in your head. There will come a time where it had enough. It went through all the cycles. It went through all the nasty negative scenarios to try to get you to stop meditating, stop sitting and doing what God tells us to do. Be still. And when you get through that rotation of the mind and you battle those demons, you've seen everything ugly about yourself. You've seen everything you're embarrassed, you're ashamed of, that you don't want to admit to nobody else. You've looked at it. You see it for what it is. And then a calm will come over you. That is the war, man. And that is the defeating of the demons. And when you come out on that other side, man, you come out so much more powerful than you went in. And it may take days, it may take weeks, it may take months, and it may be a 1-minute meditation each day. That may be all you're capable of. But if I had one thing that I would ask the young men and women out there to do that may be going down the wrong road like I went down, and something that would have stopped me, before I found God, I found meditation. And what meditation did was make me okay with me. You know what I mean? And when you're okay with you, you can walk through this life with that confidence and with that swag and with that, I'm me, man, and this is how I do me, and I'm comfortable doing me no matter what y'all are doing. And that right there gave me a whole new level of freedom. It really did.
Okay, okay. That was real powerful and passionate. I felt the passion in your voice. So with that being said, like let's speed it up a little bit. When did you meet your wife, and when did y'all have children? And also, why is family so important in today's time and just in the entire time of existence? Why do we need more visual images of family, man, woman, child?
Well, I'll start out by saying that I believe that we need more family based viewing, a family structure, seeing, you know, because it's under attack. You know, the art of the family structure, community, anything that builds is under attack. They want to degrade it. They want to break it down. That's why they introduce these things to society to try to alienate, to try to separate, to try to divide. And when you break down a family structure, you won the war. That's it. That's where we could start to build greatness. Because, in my opinion, not that we are incomplete as human beings. I don't view it that way. But there's something that enhances our completeness, something that brings us together into a more powerful form when we connect and combine with the masculine and the feminine power and put that thing together and put it to work. You know, I've reached higher heights of the human spirit, financial success, emotional wellness, comfort, you name it. I've reached levels I never even would have thought of just because I chose wisely within my wife. And I believe that for her. I think that she has reached higher heights than she ever would have reached because we work together. We fill each other's gaps. My strengths are her weaknesses, and her weaknesses or her strengths are my weaknesses. So when we put that thing together, man, and we put our heads together, there's like nothing that we can't do. And the establishment is afraid of that because when men and women start working together and stop viewing each other as competition or stop viewing each other as I don't know, it's just weird nowadays. Like people don't look at people as people.
Right.
And they look at situations or they look at finances or they look at you know how you look
Shallow.
at yeah,
Pretty
you need to look into the human being because you have to figure like, am I going to be with this person forever? So who is inside? Who is the character? Who is the soul? And how can we uplift each other, sharpen each other's blade, and able to reach the promised land? And then when you do that and you create beautiful children and you're able to raise them in a harmonious environment. Why is it harmonious? Because you and your spouse, you chose wisely. You're doing the right things. You're uplifting each other. You're encouraging each other. You're working together. You're filling each other's gaps, strengths, weaknesses. Boom. Masculine and feminine. The most powerful combination in this world is the family structure. So now you got the children in that harmonious environment, understanding how a man's supposed to treat a woman, understand how a wife is supposed to treat her man, and seeing these things in a healthy way. Realizing that, yes, we argue, yes, we butt heads, but they work it out. We work it out together as a family. Now they're learning teamwork, all these things. It's sharpening blades. You're sharpening minds, and then you're putting them out into the world. The establishment does not want these things, man, and that's why it's under attack. That's why you see the things that you see encouraging, women to be career women or men to do all this weird promiscuous stuff and keep chasing women in their 60s and 70s. No, the purpose of this existence within shining your individual light, with shining your light and your brightness and putting your talent out there into the world. Another purpose is to do what we're doing, man. Is build these families and create these communities. And what's that going to do? It's going to create great states. States going to create great countries. And that ripple effect can go. But when they attack that structure and have women being career minded in their 40s and 50s, men chasing single women out into their 50s and 60s, and nobody's ever putting this thing together and becoming that dominant force within the world, then they weaken society as a whole. So that's why I believe that we need to bring it back, man. And we need to bring it back. And I would like to let people know that when you choose wisely and you look into the soul of a person, man, there's nothing like going through this thing with somebody that got your back, no matter what, man. I mean, that's just like the most beautiful thing. And I want that for everybody because I don't know how I would live without it. It's like knowing anything happen, any problem, anything in this world, because things are going to happen and stuff's going to happen. It's going to be tough. That I got a wife that I don't even have to think about, is she loyal? I don't even think about, can I trust her with my children? Can I trust her with my money? Can I trust her with my life? Those thoughts don't even cross my mind, brother, because I chose wisely. And how did I meet my wife? I met my wife when I was up to no good. I'm not going to lie, man. And a one-night stand while I was out on parole. I was out on parole. A one-night stand led to my oldest son, that I got to reunite with him and my wife. Wasn't my wife at the time when I came home in 2017. And we just kept going, man. I mean, she made, you know, she gave me ultimatums. And that's a choice that we all have to make. In my opinion, I was grateful for those ultimatums, because just like I was speaking of, it lifted me up to be the person that I know I was supposed to be. It wasn't that hard. It was, Robert, I'll work with you through anything, but don't come home smelling like no other woman, and don't come home smelling like no drug or looking like you on no drug. No drugs or women. I got it. And it sounds crazy, but at the time I was like, damn, like, hey, cause you as men, we want our cake and eat it too.
All right.
But because she gave me that, and I loved her and my son enough, and my next son that she was pregnant with at the time, and then now we got 3. We called it quits, because I was trying to have me a little girl. Now I got 3 sons, and I'm strong, and I'm blessed. But she lifted me to new heights, man, because I realized through the purification of my soul, the more successful I will become, the more control that I'll have over, my vices, my lustful nature, my behavior in general. The more self-mastery, the more self-discipline, and the road gets more narrow and narrow. I mean, even when it comes to diet and everything else. It's all in the details. But a lot of these details you won't see without a good woman by your side, man. So shout out to the wife. I love you, baby.
That's what's up, man. Shout out to all the wives. Shout out to
Yes,
my
sir.
wife. But let's let the people know, like, how did you formulate the podcast? What is the overall message, and where can they find it?
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. This thing is like, it's a beautiful thing when you get in touch with that divine spirit that we've been talking about, and you find it through meditation, and then it evolves into prayer and all these other things. Now I do breath work and cold showers and everything to stay in touch, feet in the ground, grounded, sunlight exposure, all these different things that I'm talking about. And when you start getting in the tune, you start getting in tune with nature, with the universe, with God, and things just start to sort of evolve on their own with very little effort towards them. You just make an effort towards yourself. I just gonna be the best possible human being that I could be. And when I wake up with that thought every day, everything else just happens. Sure, there's some directed energy, okay, I'm gonna direct it in this way, work on a podcast, this way, work on a side project. But really, it's just me focusing on putting myself in the best possible position to succeed at all things, to become effective in every aspect of life. That's what creating greatness is all about. But when I first came home in 2017, I was reuniting with my wife, starting my little family at this little tiny apartment, in a crappy neighborhood in Jersey. But I was loving life. And I was working at this factory. And I was just a bottom level guy, like working on a line, right? But the thing about it was, just like I was talking about in prison, where I shifted my perspective and I started, going to these programs and speaking. Now I'm not sitting there going, oh man, I'm making minimum wage. I'm only going to do minimum wage work. I couldn't think that way no more. It wasn't in it for me to do that. It was, I'm going to do this, excuse my language, I'm going to do this stuff the best possible way I could do it. And at the time, I'm literally putting like meat in a package. That was my job, 8 hours a day. But I became the very best that ever did it in that company, bro. I'm not even lying. So much so that I got promoted. And then I ran the whole department, the best. It's a small company now. So I'm not saying I turned Amazon into a Fortune 500. It was a small company. So for me to break records was a little bit easier than maybe it was for a person that working at a big company like that. But I'm shattering records. I took over a department. I'm shattering records. I got promoted again. I'm shattering records. I got promoted again, ending up being a production manager for that company. Now, mind you, I was making $11 an hour. 3 years later, I'm making $55,000 a year, 401k, benefits package, and all that. And for all the intents and purposes, I'm a street dude, and I'm cutting it up here in the meetings with the suits. And it was like an amazing thing to me, man. I was actually finally a boss, and I didn't sell one drug, And it was hard for me to step away from that, man. it was hard for me to step away from that, but I'll get back to that why I stepped away. But while I was working there, I get ready to quit a couple times, and I talked to my boss, and he would say, "Why? What's the problem?" I was go, "This ain't it for me, boss. I need to be more impactful. I need to help people, man. You know about my past. I want to help people." He goes, "Well, you can't help people right here." I took that as a personal challenge. So as I walked the lines of my store, I walked the floor, the warehouse, I would talk to everybody. I knew everybody by first name. I knew most people's wives and children's name. I would stop and talk to everybody, give them a little beat down, and try to help everybody the way that I could. Eventually, one of these guys and then the girl that I worked with was telling you to start a podcast, and I didn't even know what podcasts were. I was like an old head, the OG. And he recorded me speaking and said, "Hey, my wife was depressed. I played her what you were talking to me about yesterday, and it really helped her. Like, you need to start this podcast." And that's where it started, man. It was like, okay, if that's the way that I can help people while I'm still working this regular 9-to-5 job, how's the easiest way to make a podcast? Anchor. Boom, I started on Anchor just with my phone. And then you see it evolved over all these years where now I got over 200 episodes out. We popping with the reels. The episodes are on deck. I mean, everything's going very, very well, but it was such a slow crawl. It took so much time, so much energy, and so much frustration. But yeah, man, I mean, we're in the grind with it, and I'm very proud of what I'm doing, and I think we're making an impact.
Okay. All right. On this podcast, we like to end with a motivational and inspirational message. So I'm gonna put it like this. Let's send a message out to a younger Robert that's about to do a prison bid or about to make that wrong decision to end up across the road, end up doing a lot of time. What will be your encouraging words for him, and what would you tell him to stay away from? Him or she, he or she?
Well, I think the biggest problem with people going through that sort of scenario is the circle, the environment. It's very tough because when I was young, I was influenced by so many things that I didn't even realize. I had expectations and standards by people around me that I didn't even know and I didn't even like. I had imaginary standards that I placed in my head just based upon who I thought people thought I was. You know what I mean? And that right there was really the base of all my problems. So if it would be possible, if I was talking to a young person that was going through big time problems and they were ready to make a big time mistake like I did, I would just ask them to get away from everybody. For just totally detox yourself from everywhere you were at and everyone you're around for 24 hours, the most now possible time that you can. Because here's my thing about vices now, or if I'm getting ready to make a bad decision and I'm fighting it. Right now it may be mild things, energy drinks and stuff that I know not healthy for me and I'm trying to quit. It's nothing that's gonna ruin my life like before, but I always tell myself you can always break later. So if you're getting ready to do a robbery like I did, or go get a pack and flip it because you're broke or whatever, just stop, detach yourself from your environment, go out somewhere. Any city you live in, man, you can find somewhere 20, 30 minutes out. Get away from them folks. Get in tune with yourself, man, and figure out if that's really the path that you want to go. That's first. Say, actually, do I really want to do this? Is this me making this decision, or am I expected to do it by this one, or am I expected to do it by that one, or do they think I'm going to do it, or am I doing it for the wrong reasons? That simple detox from everyone you're around, everywhere you're around, and getting just with you, no phones, no TV. Maybe you can take a hike or a walk or something and be away. Get a hotel up in the country or whatever, and then you can really sit with yourself and decide: is this what I really want from my life? Is this really who I am? And is this really what I want to create? Because if the answer is yes, young buck, man, then go learn your lessons. Because we all men and women, we all human beings, we're gonna learn our own lessons, and not nobody saying nothing to you is gonna change that. We're all gonna make mistakes. The point is to not make mistakes twice. So at least be sure this is you, this is your intention. You're not being forced or coerced into doing something. Number two, make sure you're paying attention, because when you pay attention to your own life and you kind of run the cycle back, if you did get jammed up or in trouble, okay, what did I do? Why did I do it? Who was around me when I did it? Examine the circumstances. Don't just be a feather in the wind where your choices in your life are determined by external events. They're determined by your emotions. They're determined by external events. They're determined by other people. Make sure you're driven and focused in what you actually want to be doing. And if it's bad, if it's making mistakes, fine. But pay attention and examine those situations, the surrounding circumstances, because that's how you're going to realize never to make those mistakes again. That's number two. Number three, it's simple as that, man. It's so simple. And this is why I talk about creating greatness, is because all the answers are simple. Most of them are absolutely free. And third, they're the ones that they're trying to keep us away from the most, because they're the maximum impact and the most powerful. The stuff that's absolutely free, tapping into the divinity that we so much spoke of here today. But lastly, I would say to anyone, stay away from the negativity. Stay away from the drama. It's real simple. It's right in front of your face. Drugs, lust, gluttony, sloth, and laziness. It's right there in the commandments. Wasn't made up out of the sky. And it doesn't have to be the exact interpretation. You could take that, once again, examine it, put it together how it works for your life, and integrate it into your life. And I bet you your life gonna get better. That's for sure.
All right. With that being said, man, I appreciate your time. Let the people know where they can find you, all the podcast, social medias, and we're gonna end it like that.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you first off, Mr. Smooth, for having me on. You know, it's nice to connect with Real Combos podcast, man, and be doing this thing, working together, networking, building this empire, one episode at a time, one link at a time. You know, we just keep it grinding, man, and I appreciate y'all for doing this. It's creating greatness. You know, we're focused on getting more effective in every aspect of our life. You can find me on Spotify, but most other places, the podcasts are at Amazon Music and Google and that, like things like that. As you see it on your screen, King of Comebacks on all social media outlets. Mostly, I'm the most active on Instagram and Facebook. So once again, man, connect with me. I appreciate y'all, and thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Much love. The next time, man.
Absolutely.
Sure. All right. There y'all have it, man. Robert Michael P. Jr. just touched down with all the game, all the knowledge, all the wisdom. You know how to rehabilitate yourself and become a whole new person. So I hope y'all really got a lot of gems out of this interview. Once again, y'all can like, share, and subscribe to all our socials, Real Conversations Podcast, Real Combos Podcast on IG, Real Conversations Podcast Network on YouTube. Find us on all audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and etc. We will see y'all tomorrow for another show with the panel. And I appreciate y'all. Like, share, and subscribe, tap in, comment. Until next time, it's all love. We out.